Now, Him is a movie that I thought looked particularly interesting when I first saw the trailer and all of the marketing for it. When Jordan Peele's name is associated with a horror movie, it's difficult to not get excited. However, after finishing watching it, I couldn't help but not only be disappointed, but also I was confused about what the hell was going on and what I watched as the movie drew to a close. There was a core message that was embedded within this film about what it takes to reach the top of your game in your particular field and the sacrifice and cost that comes with it. But with the way that it was executed, my mind was just spiraling around in circles at the end because it just got so ridiculous and I didn't truly know what to think. This movie just didn't really land in my opinion, and I feel there are a few different reasons for that. So with that, I wanted to share why I feel the movie failed and how it could have potentially been improved. Here is why Him failed. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The Erratic Execution. For me, one of the biggest issues with this movie was the way that the message was delivered to us. I thought the idea of having a GOAT in a sport reaching the end of their career and the level of retirement and in not wanting to let go of the fame, success, fortune and passion was something that felt quite interesting to explore, especially as there was a chance of a newcomer entering the scenes and taking the position that one had been so good at for so long. But with the way that the story unfolded, we ended up losing a lot of the weight of the message and it ultimately ended up falling a bit short. The movie was split over several days and each day focused on what it took to become a GOAT, and with the tough love approach that Isaiah was giving Cam, we never truly knew if he was on his side or not. I don't know if that was supposed to be a mystery, but honestly, I didn't find it intriguing in the slightest. Even with Marco, him seeming like he was helping Cam to then being against him to then helping him again and telling him to run, it just didn't quite make sense. There were supernatural elements to this movie to get the overarching message across that when becoming a GOAT, you're essentially signing a deal with the devil, and the higher-ups in the sports industry are almost like the demons that own you and can make you do whatever they want you to do. Playing the nice guys until you go against them, and then they make you aware that you're a commodity, rather than an actual human and a talent. Players being seen as a commodity and the cost of what it takes to reach the levels of success is something that's quite interesting to explore, but the whole supernatural, demonic part of it just didn't need to be a thing. The consumption of the blood making Cam equal to Isaiah didn't quite make sense at all either. He'd basically reached GOAT status without the blood and was set to take his place naturally, so making him equal to see if he was the new GOAT kind of went against what Cam had done his entire life. The spread out days where we'd have long lingering scenes such as the one on the training pitch where that guy was just getting blasted in the face with a football, which didn't really do anything or mean anything, paired with the strange X-ray style shots that we'd have where we'd see the damage that was being done to the body just felt quite jarring to sit through and watch. It felt like those kind of scenes were about building mystery and upping the tension, but it felt like the resolution of them never truly arrived. Due to the erratic nature, the strange shots, the close-up shots of eyes and blood, and the gore, it just felt like, from a stylistic point of view, it didn't quite know where it stood. So it wasn't only lost from a storytelling perspective, but it was also lost from a creative visual approach. I would have almost preferred the movie to have been centered around a cult that was influential and at the head of the industry, rather than it being demonic and the devil quite literally being in charge of all of this, because it just made me question why there would be a strange satanic connection at its core. Then I'd say those final 10-ish minutes where Cam emerged from the tunnel and entered the stadium. The sheer gore fest that it was just took me out of the movie completely, and whilst I understood why he took down the owner, manager and people that were trying to manipulate him into the deal that he didn't truly want, the animated and over-the-top nature of it just made it feel quite underwhelming, and it made it lose what it was trying to get across. The businessmen in all of this were essentially responsible for orchestrating many of the events that occurred in Cam's life, potentially even down to the death of his father, because they knew that would get him to go back to football after walking away. But even when that was revealed, there just wasn't really a gut-punching moment, which is what I feel this movie needed to take it above that surface, unengaging level, where I just felt like we were plodding along and waiting for something to erupt at the end. The lack of focus. With the message being something that was quite interesting to explore, I feel like there should have been more focus on the fact that Isaiah didn't truly want to retire and that he wanted to hold on to all of the success that he had. It was only properly revealed to us at the end that he was basically working against Cam, and with him going to watch tapes on many occasions, which was him just being obsessed with seeing a crowd cheering for him. I think that would have been something interesting to have seen more of. pitting the old up against the young throughout the entirety of it, rather than just having these scenes where Cam was just walking from room to room and sitting in ice baths, running in the desert, or being tasked with throwing the ball in a short time frame. We saw the mindset of somebody who was on the cusp of becoming the greatest and the sacrifices that they made, but also somebody that was yearning to stay at the top, and I wish that was something that was carried through just a little bit more, especially when in this instance, death was the biggest consequence. For these higher-ups to have been the villains of the entire thing, I also feel like they should have featured just a little bit more. Or at least, if there's going to be a supernatural edge, include that just a little bit more as well. I just feel like it didn't really know which avenue to lean down, and The Fan was almost the perfect representation of that, because they felt like they had a supernatural core, but they were just human. I didn't quite know if this movie wanted me to feel sorry for the athletes at the top of their game as well. I understand that they sacrificed a lot to get there, but the rewards that they get for doing so are riches and a lifestyle beyond everybody's wildest dreams, so that was something that popped into my head during the movie. Because I don't feel like they need to be felt sorry for if that's something that the movie was trying to get across. The lack of connection to the characters. Whilst I'd say the performances by the actors were strong, and Marlon Wayans delivered a very creepy American football idol of Cam's, the writing of them felt very surface level and there wasn't much more than what was on the page. I didn't truly understand them on a deeper level, and I felt like that ultimately resulted in me not really caring about them that much or being invested in what happened to them. I never really cared if Isaiah won the final fight, if he'd lose it, if Cam would win it, if he'd lose it, or if he'd end up taking the position of the GOAT. So I feel like that's a major issue, considering that's basically what the entire movie's about. Like I said, I wouldn't put that down to the performances because I feel like they were performed quite well, but I think it's ultimately down to the way that they were written. There was no true good guy in all of this, other than Cam, as he was the one that was being taken advantage of, but the lack of emotion that the character had for the most part of the movie, and the just hallucinogenic fest that it felt like this movie was, I ultimately found myself just not really caring, which is a shame, especially when there's only really two characters that are at the heart of the movie. So what was actually good about it? Well, some of the symbolism that was present within the movie, whilst not necessarily being the most thought-provoking and it being a bit on the nose, was interesting to see being depicted. For example, the demons and the devil being in charge, and the GOAT sportsman Cam being painted as a messiah-type figure. The two polar contrasts, it was quite cool to see on occasions. As well as that, I think the movie got across the cost of what it takes to get to the top of your game and the sacrifices that one has to make, even putting family and people you care about on a level below the sport in order to get there. Incorporating the things that they have to deal with, such as obsessed fans and suffocating paparazzi, is also something that was delivered well. Honestly, overall, I'd say this movie is one that once it hits streaming, it'll probably get more eyes on it, and the Jordan Peele effect will help it sit in the Netflix top 10. But once people start watching it and ultimately feel how many of us do after watching it, it'll just become one of these forgettable horrors that came out, and you'll see sitting in the library on a platform waiting for somebody to watch it. There was potential with the message that they wanted to get across, but it just really didn't land for me. So, there you have it, why him failed.